My name is Manuel Rustin, your favorite teacher's favorite teacher. Welcome to my classroom. This is an all of the above teacher vlog. Relationships matter in teaching. Of course. How many times have you heard that? More times than you can count, I'm sure. But those relationships have to come from a place of sincere love. Love for their humanity, love for who they are. Students can smell fake from a mile away. So the question is, how do you communicate to students that you truly love them? How do you keep that coming from a sincere, authentic place and demonstrate that consistently and effectively? These are 11 ways that I show love to my students. They work for me. I think they'll work for you no matter the grade level, no matter what content you teach. So this video is not about being that cool teacher. This video is about ways to show love to your students and establish those positive relationships at the same time as maintaining high academic standards. All right, so here's step number one for showing love to your students. So step number one, a really basic step, is to greet students at the door as they enter each day. Greeting students at the door, it's really basic, but it's incredibly important. Those passing periods, that's not a time for you to shuffle around some papers or for you to check your messages on your phone or for you to fire off some emails. People that know that you are busy. Our teacher day is busy. Save those emails, save those text messages for after school or lunch. Really, you have to invest in your students during those passing periods, no matter how busy you are. For you to be able to greet students as they enter is you showing them that you are excited to see them, that you care about them, and that class is going to be awesome that day. So I greet my students at the door every day as they walk in. You could greet them however you like. I know there are some training sessions I've been to where they talk about shaking every student's hand as they come in. I've seen viral videos of teachers with different handshakes or different ways that they greet their students as they walk in. Do whatever works for you, but it's important that students see you as they enter. My students, when they don't see me in the hallway, they start to worry if they have a sub or not, because if they don't see me, something's up, because I'm there all the time. And I'm not out there looking at my phone. I'm not out there just, talking to other teachers. I'm out there to see students as they enter. And it's also a great opportunity for me to interact with other students in the hallway, whether I have them or not, because establishing a culture of positivity and showing love to students, it's something that should happen all day, every day, whether they're your students or not. So step two, after I've greeted students at the door and everybody's in and the bell rings and class begins, I start with a daily intro. I don't do this in every class, all right? This is something that's a bit time consuming, so I do it in my classes that have a roster count in the 20s. When I have 30 and up, I tend not to do the daily intro because of the amount of time it takes. But in any case, let me explain for you what this daily intro is, and you can decide for yourself if it's something that you think would help you show love to your students. So the daily intro, everybody is seated, and we pick a topic for the day, all right? A simple topic that anybody could relate to, all right? So it might be, for example, favorite movie. And we go student by student, and they introduce themselves to the class for the period. And they introduce themselves by declaring their name, all right? So if I'm the first student to go, I start out by saying, "Hi, my name is Rustin." And then I pause, and the whole class says hello back to the student. The whole class responds, "What up, Rustin? Hello, Rustin. Hey, Rustin." And hearing the whole class acknowledge you and say hello to you is something that I think is impactful, especially for students who might feel that they are isolated or lonely or unseen. And after the class says hello to them, then the student says what their favorite movie is, if that's the topic for the day. "Hi, my name is Rustin. What up, Rustin? Hello, Rustin. And my favorite movie is Slam." And then it's on to the next student, just like that. And we go through student by student throughout the entire class. Each student says hello to the class by declaring their name, and then the entire class says hello back by acknowledging them by name. "Hi, my name is Rustin. Hello, Rustin." They don't just say hi, or they don't just say hello or what up. They say the student's name as well. This is also obviously a good icebreaker tool for learning names, but we do it throughout the year. Every single class period of the year. There's no shortage of topics. If you ask students what should be the topic for the day, I find that students always have ideas. Oh, favorite sport. What season do you like best? If you could be any animal, what animal would you be? Something that's relatively easy and accessible. We don't take time to explain. We don't take time to really ponder heavy questions. It's just real quick, simple daily intro that we do. And that way, every single student has been acknowledged, and every single student has acknowledged every other student in the room. And on top of that, they might have learned a little something new about that person, or they might have seen commonalities that they have with other students. So that's the daily intro. I honestly do not remember where I first picked that up. I started doing it when I was an activities director. In my ASB class, we would do the daily intro and students seemed to like it. So I started doing it in other classes. If you heard of this before and if it's part of some training system, my apologies for not crediting them. You could go ahead and drop a comment and say, oh, this is from such and such, so I could give them credit where credit is due. But that's my daily intro. And by doing it, I'm showing love to my students by acknowledging every single one of them and also sharing a little bit about myself because, of course, as a teacher, I'm involved in the intro as well. Step number 3, it's really critical. Maybe it should have been step 1. These are in no particular order, by the way. But step number 3 is to always call students by their name and say their name correctly. All right, no matter how difficult it might be for you to pronounce a certain student's name, you have to learn how to say their name correctly. And you have to address them by their name each time you see them. Pronouncing their names correctly is especially important if you have a student whose name is not a traditional English, Anglo-American sounding name. I myself, my first name is Manuel, and growing up, people pronounced it all sorts of different ways. Manuel, Manny, Emmanuel, Manuel, Emmanuel. And as a student, I always just felt sort of like I just wanted to get out of that awkward moment of people not really knowing how to say my name right. And I would always just let it slide. And if somebody asked me how to pronounce it, I would say it correctly. And if they repeated it back and messed up, I'd be like, yeah, you got it, basically. And, you know, I really regret that. I was a little kid and I realized, you know, my name is important. My name means something. My mother named me Manuel for a reason. And I'm just as important as everybody else in the room. So I feel that my name should be pronounced correctly, just like everybody else's name is pronounced correctly. So you have to learn your student's name and pronounce them correctly and greet them by that name when you see them in the hallway, when you see them in class. And speaking to them and greeting them by name needs to happen immediately. All right, so as soon as you get your class roster for the year, start studying those names. And when you first meet them, ask them how they would like you to say their name. So first day of school, I'm going through my roster, I'm checking in with each student, and I ask them, hi, my name is Dr. Rustin, what's your name? And they tell me their name, and I check the roster, and if I have any difficulty pronouncing it, I repeat it, and did I say that right? Did I say that right? Are you sure I said that right? And I really make sure I know how I'm saying their name and saying it correctly. So this is a step where the daily intro really helps out because the whole class gets to hear a student say their name correctly every single day. All right, so that's another reason why I do the daily intro, because it helps students learn each other's names and say them correctly as well. But you have to study students' names. You have to address them by their proper name. And don't come up with nicknames to make it easier for you. If they have a long, complicated, difficult to pronounce name that's difficult in your opinion, fine, but you got to learn how to pronounce that, spell it out phonetically, do what you got to do, but don't come up with some little nickname for them just to make it easier on you, because you got to really recognize them for who they are. If you love them, you would care enough to learn their name and how to pronounce their name correctly. So do that. So tip number 4 for showing love to your students. One thing that I do day in and day out is compliment my students. All the time. All right, I see a student that got a new haircut. Man, I like your new haircut. I see a student that's wearing something new that I haven't noticed them wear before. Hey, I like that shirt. How long have you had that? I'm complimenting students all day. I'm up and down the halls during lunch or nutrition. Man, those waves, woo, killing them. Those shoes, man, I gotta give me some of those. Are those new glasses? Man, those are dope. Did you color your hair? I like that. That looks fresh. Man, I heard about that math test you took in Mr. Thomas's class. That's what I'm talking about. Complimenting students is really a basic way to show love and to help them feel better. Because, I mean, think about when you were a kid and all the thought you put into your appearance when you showed up for school, hoping to not stand out for the wrong reasons. Man, as a teacher, let me reassure them a little bit by telling them, yo, that shirt that you're wearing today, I like it. Some would call it killing with kindness. You know, that works if that's how you want to look at it. But, you know, I'm just complimenting students and keeping it positive and keeping it loving all day, every day. So now it's time for tip number 5. Tip number 5 for showing love to students is asking them questions. all the time, showing that you're interested in them beyond them just being academic students in your class. So I'm asking students questions all the time, just basic questions, get to know them. I'm asking them what's on their playlist, what are they listening to. I'm asking them if they've seen any movie recently that they'd recommend. I'm telling them, yo, I just got Netflix finally, what should I put on my list? Just basic little questions to spark conversation with students and get to know them better. Through asking questions, I've learned so much about the world beyond my little bubble. That's how I learned about K-pop, because I had some students in here during lunch and they'd always be talking about K-pop this, K-pop that. I'm like, what is K-pop? And they broke it down for me. Show interest in students by asking them questions. Asking questions is also a good classroom management tool. If a kid's, watching YouTube on their phone or on their Chromebook when they're not supposed to, I come up and I'm asking them, yo, what video is that? Okay, then I'm sparking conversation with them and then letting them know, all right, I'm gonna check that out, but right now you need to put that away because we're doing this. All right, so quick ways to learn a little bit about students and express interest in them. That's another way to show love. And depending on how you do it and when you do it, it could also be a good classroom management tool. Tip number 6 for showing love to your students is a simple one. Remember to smile. A smile can go a long way. I wrote about this once in a Medium post. I had a day during my first year where I was so frustrated and so angry that when class started, I was just in a bad mood, and a student asked a really simple question and I had a little bit of attitude back. And this was a student that really, really liked me, that really, really loved my class, and that student just checked out for the rest of the day. I forgot to keep it positive. I forgot to wear a smile, because no matter what I'm going through, students are probably going through worse. And what I'm going through has nothing to do with the individuals in my class. So you got to remember to smile. All right, I'm somebody who doesn't really smile much, just in general. My whole life, I've had people interact with me and say, oh man, I thought you were so mean. I thought you didn't like me. You always look so upset. But I'm not upset. I'm not down. That's just my face. But I got to remember that my face actually plays a really large role in establishing the culture and climate of the classroom, because as the leader of the classroom, and you're the teacher, you are the leader, establishing that positivity and expressing that positivity and showing that you're happy to be there. Students need to know that you're happy to be there. If you're not happy to be there, you shouldn't be there. All right? So you got to express and show students that you're happy to be there. You're happy to have them there, even if you're stressed. And it's fine to share with them the fact that teaching is stressful, teaching is difficult. It's fine to be real, but still remember to smile. All right, those young men and women are dealing with more than you could even imagine. And if you're just sitting there all grumpy all the time, that's just not helping. So tip number 6, smile. But not like fake smile, like students can read through that. Tip number 7 for showing love to your students is to acknowledge the whole room together. Read the room and get a sense of those days where students are particularly stressed out, oftentimes in the winter time or when finals are approaching or holiday times coming up. A lot of times students are dealing with momentous amounts of stress. And if you just push forward in your lesson, you're so focused on your lesson that you kind of miss the big picture of what's happening in your room or what's happening with students. And if you don't check in, oftentimes, man, that's just so dismissive, and it really shows that maybe you don't really care about them as people because you're so focused on the content. So you got to take a time out sometimes and check in with students and ask them what's up. Why do you guys look so down today? What's going on? Talk to me. Let's talk real quick before we get into this activity. I want to know what's up with you. And oftentimes your little 2 cents words of advice can go a long way in showing students that you acknowledge their humanity and that you understand that what they're going through is real. You validate their feelings and give them some tools, some guidance to navigate those feelings instead of just pushing forward into the lesson. It's not always about the content. You could push forward in that lesson. If the students aren't with you and you don't acknowledge that, then you pushing forward is just meaningless because they're not getting it anyways. Tip number 8 is to just listen. All right, listen. When a student approaches you about a concern, whether it be class related or related to something else, pause what you're doing and look at them and listen to them. All right, don't dismiss them. Sometimes I'll be firing off an email or super focused on some task and it's before school or after school and a student comes in, and I got to remember that whatever I'm doing is not as important as this young person that's approaching me. So I stop what I'm doing and I listen to whatever they have. All right, you got to listen. Students want to be heard, and a lot of times it's difficult, especially if a student is bringing a concern to you. It's difficult for them to do that, to bring a concern to an adult. So when a student has something, even if you think it's nothing, Pause, take a time out from what you're doing and listen to them. Be that ear that they might not have elsewhere from any other teacher or any other classroom or any other friend or any other family member. Even if it's something that you consider nagging. I mean, I've had times where I'm just trying to eat my lunch and a student is in my room, because I tend to have students hanging out in my room, and there might be one that's just talking my ear off about something that I just don't care about. To show love to that student, I listen. Even if I don't care about what they're talking about, I listen. I let them go ahead and share whatever their interest is or whatever the heck they're talking about, and I'll be real with them if it's something that I'm just not interested in. I'll let them know. Like if they're talking about video games, I happen not to play video games, and I tell them that, man, I'm not even into games. Those are boring to me. And they keep talking. All right, fine, I'm gonna listen, but I'm letting you know I'm not into it. I'm not gonna fake like I'm into it. Don't be fake. No matter what you do for any of these tips, you gotta be real with them. Step number 9 for showing love to your students is to congratulate them for all their little accomplishments. Students are doing things outside of your class. It's not all about you and it's not all about your class. Students might have soccer tournaments. Students might have picked up a new job or internship. Students might have done something amazing in art class, and you hear another student mention it, or you hear another teacher say it, or it's in your school bulletin. Acknowledge that student, congratulate them, shout them out in the middle of the class. I interact with students in the hallway, many of whom I don't even have in class as students on my roster. And when I hear their name in the school bulletin, or I hear somebody else talk about, oh yeah, JoJo did this, when I see JoJo in the hallway, yo JoJo, I heard about such and such, and I congratulate him. Think about when you've been congratulated for something, that warm feeling, it's awesome. Students love that too. So I congratulate them all the time, anytime I hear that they did something special outside of my room. All right, and I try to congratulate them in front of the whole class when possible and when applicable, because shouting them out in front of the whole class, yeah, it might be a little embarrassing sometimes. I know I don't like to be shouted out in front of everybody, but I always appreciate it. I always feel special for it. All right, so tip number 10 for showing love to your students is to be real. Be your authentic self and share a little bit about who you are with your students. All right, don't stand behind this weird, robotic, I'm a teacher, you're a student, there's this disconnect. Don't hide behind there. Be real with your students. They can smell fake from a mile away. And if you never open up about who you are, if you never show or share a little bit about who you are as a person, man, that relationship is not going to be authentic. You're not really going to establish positive relationships in your class. So be yourself and follow your style and your personality. All right. Each teacher has their own unique personality. If you're not a humorous, happy, positive, all the time type of teacher, then don't fake that, because students can smell fake. Be your real authentic self. Me, I'm a pretty laid back individual. I'm a pretty humorous individual. You can't quite tell probably from these videos, but I'm joking around with students quite a bit, and I'm laid back quite a bit. I'm an easygoing person, all right? There's another teacher who works near me who is not an easygoing, laid-back type of person. This teacher is a real regimented type of teacher, and they use that regimentation, and they're real positive about it as they're going through their lesson plan and as they're going through their day, and that works for that teacher. They're not being fake. If I tried to be that teacher, it wouldn't be real, it wouldn't be authentic. Students would see right through it. If that teacher tried to be Mr. Laid Back, chill, it wouldn't work. It'd fall flat, and students could tell. So be real. If you're not into rap music, don't fake like you're into rap music, and don't you dare try to use rap music lingo. Just don't. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. If you consider yourself to be a pretty nerdy individual, nerd out. Share that with students. Be your real authentic nerd self. Don't try to be someone you're not. All right, you don't want your students pretending to be someone they're not, so you can't be up in front of class pretending to be something that you're not. All right, so whatever your particular personality and style is, go with that. Make that work. If you're looking for videos that are about classroom management, for example, and you see something that's really regimented and has real concrete, explicit steps, only follow those to the extent that they match who you are and what your style is. Number one rule of classroom management and showing love to your students is to be yourself, be your true self. Don't try to be something you're not. If you are trying to be something you're not, your classroom management is going to fall apart, because students are going to see right through it, and you're not going to know how to react to certain situations because you're not thinking from a place of authentic sincerity. You're thinking from a place of, what does this text say, or what did that video say? No, be your authentic self. All right, final tip for showing love to your students. This really could have been tip number 1, because it's a critical tip. Although these aren't in order, they're just in whatever random order I came up with. But tip number 11 is to really check yourself and make sure you are consistently showing love to your students equally. All right? By that I mean, don't use these tips with just certain students that you feel a little more relational capacity and connection with. That's not fair to your students that are maybe quieter or students who are more shy. No, you got to express love consistently to every student every day. Part of that means acknowledging every single student in your class every single day, every single period. You really got to check yourself and make sure you didn't let any young person walk in your room and exit your room without being acknowledged by you. You don't want any student to ever be able to walk away from your classroom wondering if you even noticed that they were present that day. You got to acknowledge every single student. My classes are big, all right? So I know classes are too big and there's not enough time. Class of 40 people, only 57 minutes. How am I going to acknowledge every single person? You do it quickly. Part of it is greeting them at the door as they enter. Part of it is quick check-ins in any half a second of time that you have. You're passing out papers, you make eye contact with Matthew. What up, Matt? What's good with you? Real simple, that fast. It doesn't even need to take half a second. It could be a split second. What up, AB? And boom, keep it moving. But you got to acknowledge each student. Eye contact with each student at least once and say each student's name at least once. You have to acknowledge every student. Acknowledge them as they enter, acknowledge them as they're leaving, acknowledge them during transitions, acknowledge them during your classroom lesson. Go around and make sure you're acknowledging each student's presence. If any student walks into your classroom at the beginning of the period and exits your classroom at the end of the period without you having acknowledged them once, then how in the world are they to believe that you actually care about them and that you actually love them? You didn't even see them that day. They're wondering if you even noticed their presence. Some might be convincing themselves that they'd rather it be that way because they're introverted and they want to be quiet and be hidden and slip through the cracks. No, you acknowledge every single student that walks in your room because every student matters and you love them all and you have to love them all consistently throughout. There are always going to be those students that are a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more charismatic or funny. And when you find yourself interacting with them more than you interact with other students, you got to check yourself and you got to stop that. You got to make it a point to reach out to those quiet students that aren't as outgoing. You got to make it a point to ask yourself, have I said anything to so-and-so today? Let me go over there real quick. And just a quick as you walk past, what up, so-and-so? Is their name so-and-so? I wonder if there's anybody out there named so-and-so. In any case, you walk by, what's up, so-and-so? Now, I see you sitting there all quiet. You ain't got nothing to say to your favorite teacher today. You can never be too busy to acknowledge a person's humanity. So you have to check in with each student at least once. So those are 11 basic steps, but I got some bonus steps for you. Those 11 that I just shared, I perceive them to be really quick, really simple, really basic, every period, every day. Maybe the daily intro one is a little bit more taxing, especially if you have a class that's in the 30s or in the 40s even. But all the other tips, I think you could do them every day, every class. These bonus tips really probably only apply to certain situations or certain class periods or maybe even certain content areas. I don't think they're as critical as the 11 that I already shared, but they're easy, quick little additions that you can make to your classroom that'll help create a culture of love and community. So tip number one is to make a music playlist. I picked up this tip on Twitter following the hip hop ed hashtag. Christopher Emden tweeted out that one thing that teachers could do is create a playlist where students curate a playlist for the class using songs of their choice that reflects whatever particular theme of that class or of that period. So for me, there are certain classes where they have a music playlist that plays during the daily warm-ups when they're doing their do now or having quiet focused study time and I'm going around and helping them out. Instead of having it just be dead silent, I like there to be light music in the background. Instead of it being my music, because my classroom isn't about me, it's about the students, I have students create a playlist for the class using songs of their choice. It's really simple to do. If YouTube isn't blocked at your school site, you could start a playlist. I name each of my playlists after periods. So period 5, spring playlist. And there are settings in there for you to be able to share a link to that playlist for others to be able to add songs to it or collaborate. So our school, everybody has a Chromebook. I'll do a class activity. I send out the link to students and they got to find 1 or 2 songs that they feel are particularly meaningful to them or represent something about them. And they add those songs to the class playlist. Sometimes I'll tell students if it's a song with explicit language that's not school appropriate, then I only want you to add the instrumental to that song or find a clean version if it exists. This year, in creating the class playlist, I had students go up in front of class and share what songs they chose and why they chose them. It was a real quick 30-second presentation. It was sort of an icebreaker type of thing, and students had to reflect why that song was particularly meaningful. All right, so a student will go up, say their name. A song that I'm adding to our class playlist is such and such. I like this song because it reminds me to stay focused on the future and keep my head up. And that's my song that I'm adding to the playlist. And then round of applause, and then next student goes up. Real quick mini presentations. That's how I did it this time around. There were other times where I had a warm-up question and I asked students what are 2 songs that have been particularly meaningful to them, and they answer and they explain why those songs were meaningful. And then I take those songs and I create a playlist of those songs to play in our class. So sometimes I do that without students knowing it's going to be added to the playlist, because sometimes when students know you're going to add it to the class playlist, that might influence their song choice. So the next bonus tip that I have for you is having student photos on the wall, especially if you teach high school and students are attending prom and different Spirit Week events and all that stuff. Take pictures with them, put it on your wall. Let students know that this room is their room as well, that they belong here, that they're a part of it. As you could probably see, I have a lot of photos on my wall. My wall got a little bit out of control. And I'm not saying that your wall should look anything like my wall looks, because it's quite out of control. But having a little space in your room for photos that you have of students at their various dances and sporting events. I take photos with my students all the time. If we're at a rally, yo, get in this with me. That's it. Like, yo, just holding up my phone. Like, yo, get in this with me. And they jump in. They love that. Having pictures of my students on my wall also helps me out at the beginning of a school year. When I have students coming in for the first time that don't know me and they notice some familiar faces on the wall posing with me, that's kind of like a cosign. That's kind of like, man, this dude must be all right because, you know, here he is with my cousin. And that's really helpful for building a community that extends beyond just your 4 walls. All right, so one final thing I got to put out there. I hate to have to say it, but no matter how much love you show to your students, you have to maintain high academic expectations for your students day in and day out. You cannot strive to be that cool teacher. We all know that cool teacher from when we were in school who everybody loved, but not too many people learned anything from. This isn't about being on the side of students and being their friend. It's about showing that you really love them, and because of that love for them, you have high expectations for what they're going to do in your class and what they're going to do with their futures. So love and high expectations coexist. So let me know how these tips work out for you. Drop a comment below if you've already been using any of them. Let me know how they work out for you. And if you got any new ideas out there, if you have any ideas for showing love to your students day in and day out in a really basic way, add them to the comments below so I can learn, because I'm constantly striving to learn how to be a better teacher each and every day. All right. So again, my name is Rustin. Thank you for spending some time in my classroom. This is an all of the above teacher vlog. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss our episodes of All of the Above, where we bring you news and headlines in education, and so that you don't miss any future installments of Rustin's Room. All right, thank you.